Hello, this is Pete from SAP Training HQ, and in this video I want to go through select options on selection screens. I had a question from one of the students in the ABAP course. He wanted me to explain it in a little more detail so that he really understood the low field and the high field that sit behind our select option fields. So as you can see on the screen here, I have a few selection fields, and normally in, let's take this first field, my EE, we just have a variable that sits behind that, holding the value that the user enters. The field along the bottom is a little more complex, and this is classed as a complex selection option in SAP. And here we've got a field called myDOB, and you can see we have a field here that's representing the starting value for this field, and then we have a to and an ending value. So what this means is we're allowing the user to enter a starting value for the date of birth, an ending value, so that in our program we can select all the records within that range. Okay, so we can start at the 2nd of December 58 and maybe go to the 1st of January 1960, and there we have a date selection. But selection options can get more complex than that. If I fast forward this video, let's see if we can, here we go. So when we actually press the, let's see, this button here, this select option, we can go to a more complex selection. And you can see here, it's popped up 4 different tabs allowing the user to include and exclude different individual values or range of values. So not only do we give the user the option of selecting individual ranges with those 2 fields, we can say give us a number of ranges to include, a number of ranges to exclude, individual values to include, and individual values to exclude. Now that's pretty complex. So instead of us having lots of different fields on the screen, we have this extra pop-up to give the user the facility to do this. But if you think about it, in an ABAP program, that would really require a lot of logic to actually implement and really make sure we haven't got any errors coming in, and to be able to cater for all these complex selections. It's a lot of work, but SAP have built that in for us. So what we have are really called value range tables. That's what sits behind these selection options. So let me scoot forward in this video a little more, and let's see if I can get to a place. Here we go. So I'm actually debugging this program in the video, and what we have sat behind that my date of birth value selection, if you like, is this internal table where we have 3 records. The first record has a first field. Well, let's go through the fields. We have sign, option, low, and high. Sign is an indicator, or it's a value that tells us whether we're going to include or exclude whatever we have in the additional fields. So this first record says we're going to include the values in the low and high field. Now the option field determines how we're going to include, and EQ means equal to, same as the equal to sign. So this means include where the low value is this, and when we have a high value that's blank, hasn't been filled in, well, that's not taken into account. It actually does an equal to this individual low value field. So it actually doesn't work as a range in this case. If only the first field is filled in, it's an equal to whatever is filled in low. Okay, so it's only going to select records for the 2nd of December 1958. But then we have another record underneath, record 2. Also says include records that are equal to the 13th of December 1992. So then we have 2 selections going on, and we should receive, let's say there's 1 record per date, we should receive 2 records back. But then when we look down at the 3rd record in this internal table, it's a little bit differently. Now we have a sign saying E, which means exclude. So we're including these 2 individual selections, but we're excluding this value range. Because the user actually entered a low value and a high value, that means we're going to actually treat this selection record as a range of values, not individual values. and the option automatically gets switched to a BT, which means between. So that's why we have this range. So our selection option equals these two records, but also is going to make sure it excludes any records between these two dates. Now, maybe this example doesn't really work very well because we're just saying include these two individual records, the two individual values, but exclude this range. So we'll probably end up with just these two records showing. But if we had two records, one that said exclude this range and another one that said exclude 2005 to 2009, then it would return all the values, all the records that do not equal those value ranges. So let's break it down a little bit more in terms of ABAP. What's going on is the sign field is used to include or exclude. The option field is used to say whether we're going to have something equal to, less than, greater than or equal to, you know, all the normal operators. The low value, if only the low value is filled in, then this record in the select option is going to be treated as an individual record selection. Okay, it's not going to be a range, it's going to be just selecting on an individual value. If the high value is filled in, then it will convert it to a range. So it won't be an individual record selection, it'll take the low value to the high value and make that a range selection. So it may seem a little bit complicated to begin with, but hopefully that's explained it, showing you that the select option is really very versatile. It lets you select individual records at the same time as excluding ranges and including other ranges. If I scroll back in the video a little bit more, let's see to where we've actually filled this in. There we go. You can see this is the place in the video where the user is excluding records between 1st of Jan 99, 20th of December 2002, and we get back to our internal table, and that's the record that's generated there. So when this program runs, it'll step through this internal table and only select the records that match everything in the selection. Hope that's helped. If you want to know a little bit more information, let me come out of full screen in this. I've got this web page here. This will take you to the SAP Help website where they talk about and discuss internal tables for selection tables a little bit more. So you can see here we have selection tables, it'll tell you about them, then it'll go through the individual fields and give you the technical explanation of how they are all used. And then it'll tell you about range tables, which is exactly the same thing that underlie those selection options, but we can also create range tables if we want by ourselves without attaching it to a field, and use them just within our program to help us select table entries. If you have any more questions, just let me know and I'll be happy to create another video. Thanks, bye bye.